We've come a long way in the type of traffic that roams around the network. You can't simply have your PC or your endpoint device, if you will, simply connected to a switch, and that switch connected to another switch, and that other switch connected to a router, and that router connected to the outside network. It's not quite that simple, although I've designed many networks in that simplistic fashion. You cannot have an organization that has, hundreds of people or thousands of people, or maybe you're designing a network for an office complex, maybe for a mall, maybe you're helping somebody out. Whatever the case is, you have to have a method to your madness. Do you know what I mean by a method to your madness? You can't just throw a bunch of equipment together. And just because it works. You ever heard that before? Somebody telling you, leave it alone, it works. Well, just because it works doesn't mean it's right or that it's working the right way. I'm sure you guys have been inside of data centers or maybe even your own house that's filled with cables everywhere. Wires that are connecting your power, maybe you've got some network and data throughput, maybe you've got too many devices connected to one outlet, whatever the case is. That setup, if you will, works, but it doesn't make it right. And in order to make it right, you have to do things methodically. You have to plan it out. And you have to not only plan for the existing infrastructure, you have to plan for growth. I can give you a very easy example. In the case of the strip mall, if you will, or a mall setup, or even an office building setup, if you are planning exactly for, if you don't plan and you put in equipment exactly for the number of people or the number of devices that are there right now, that would not allow you to expand. Expansion comes in many different shapes and sizes, if you will. We're not really talking about expanding from the number of people scope. That's not always the case. The needs of the organization change. Here's what I mean. Let's say you have, I'm going to take something very small. Let's say you have a 10 people organization, a 10 device organization. Very small, right? You may think to yourself, well, all I need is a switch, and I need a router, and I need an internet connection. Well, yes, you're right, okay? You have a switch, you have a router, and you have an internet connection, and you plug everything in, and you're good to go. Did you take into consideration what those 10 people are doing? Do you think you may need to divvy up their bandwidth requirements and divide up what the groups of people are doing? Maybe somebody's doing web development. Maybe somebody's responsible for accounting. Maybe somebody's responsible for marketing. So depending on what groups of people are doing what will dictate, hopefully, how you divvy up the network. I can use an analogy of you having $1 to spend. And if you're going to get multiple items for that $1, you want to make sure, maybe $1 is not a good analogy, right? Maybe $100. You may want to choose and pick how you're going to divide up the $100 to make the most use of it. You may have some people that require a lot of bandwidth, internet bandwidth. Maybe you have some people that require a lot of internal bandwidth, depending on the types of traffic that are going across. A person that is responsible for doing marketing, maybe going on to social network sites, marketing-related, advertising-related sites. Person that is doing internal development on the web or web development may require information from databases. Maybe they're doing a lot of reading and writing to and from the databases. Maybe they have an IDE built that they are developing from. The person that is doing accounting is going to have a different set of needs. Is anybody using a web-based interface to gain access to perhaps the accounting side or the customer information or whatever the case is? You have to decide how that is split up. Now, 10-people organization, I agree, is not something you need a lot of planning for. But if you're new at this, pick a small organization. If you're new at this and you're trying to learn, pick a smaller group of people that you're going to be designing for. Yes, you could have fictitious designs up, of course, to see how things are going to work, because you need to accommodate and account for many different things. In the 10-people organization that I was telling you about, are there really 10 devices? Well, there may be 10 physical devices like laptops or desktops. I get it. But what about tablets and mobile phones and mobile devices? That multiplies your need. Do you have wireless to worry about? Of course you do. You have security to worry about? Yeah, of course you do. How about BYOD, bring your own device? Will there be other people that are coming into the organization that are going to be using a guest network? Possibly. Maybe you want to leave that open, and maybe you don't. You want to keep track of everything that's going on. A bunch of things change. I guess what I'm trying to say is, in summary, if you will, you need to have a method to your madness. You can't just throw cables and throw equipment together. If you've done things that way, it's time to change the way you think. Let me show you something. Cisco has this really nice plan your network, plan for complex networks. Plan for complex networks. And you'll notice there are a few network design models. Okay? And this is a really good document. You can find it here. This is a really good document, and the one that I'm showing you information from, because it outlines, in summary, it outlines just about everything you're going to encounter in the network universe. Cisco has taken the time and energy to build a snapshot, if you will, of the networks you will encounter and the design with which you should be accustomed to and familiar with. So it's talking about today's network include voice. Well, yeah, this wasn't true not too long ago. Having voice as part of your network structure and prioritizing voice depending on which portion of the network you are in is very important. If you guys use certain voice over IP services, they use or sending voice over your network. Cisco, of course, also has their voice-based infrastructure, and their routers and switches are designed for it. You have video, right? Today's networks have video. You know what I mean by this? How often do you go and take a look at a video at your workplace? A lot. Now, I'm not just saying, you're looking at video in terms of watching movies or watching video for entertainment purposes, which maybe you are, but maybe you're doing it for advertising. Maybe you are responsible for creating the video or editing the video. Maybe you are part of the marketing sales group. Maybe your organization does build or create videos. And as a result, video is part of your network. And maybe you're just streaming videos from social media. Maybe that's the case, whatever the case is. Video is part of your network. Video traffic, just like voice traffic, is part of your network. Network management, well, yeah. You have to be sure that you're able to manage the devices, switches, and routers, and other network equipment that you need to be able to manage. There are mission critical and routing traffic in addition to bulk user traffic. Well, yes. You know what mission critical is? Mission critical network traffic. That's traffic that can't be dropped, that can't get lost. That is network traffic that has to be very reliable. So to give you an example of that, if you're watching a movie, let's say you're watching a movie at your workplace, and the movie has a little hiccup, and the movie pauses or the movie dies, whatever the case is, and you have to stop it and restart it. Not mission critical. If you have a customer that is signing on to your network and that is filling out a credit card application information, right? Not credit card application, filling out credit card information so that they, the user, can purchase something from your website. That's mission critical, because if you or your organization is receiving your revenue from that source, you cannot have that user who's entering in credit card information, you cannot have that user and that data, that credit card information, fail. That credit card transaction has to succeed. Now, whatever mechanisms you have in place behind the scenes to make sure that the user that is giving you or providing you the credit card information only has to provide it to you once. Have you had that experience before? Of course you have. Have you had the experience where you logged on to buy something or another, and you fill out your credit card information, and you say submit or okay or buy, whatever you say, and then the screen just gets lost, or your credit card information gets cleared up, and it doesn't happen as much anymore, but it does happen sometimes. And you have to enter in your credit card information again, and then you're thinking to yourself, well, am I going to be charged twice? What happened? You never got a confirmation. It just raises a lot of confusion. So if someone is putting in credit card information, or they're putting in their key pieces of information like driver's license number, maybe that's part of what you're taking in, social security number, passport number, whatever key pieces of personal information that they're putting in, you don't want them to put it in multiple times. So that would be an example of mission critical data. Your internal ERP system, your enterprise resource planning system, maybe your payroll, benefits, sales order information, general ledger, purchase order information, your inventory, those components are very important and would be considered part of your mission critical traffic. Your customer service department, for example, can't look up a customer and your system to tell them it's not available or the customer is not there when they have clearly purchased items from you. So those kinds of things, if you will, or transactions or traffic has to be very, very well thought out. Right? Now, each type of traffic has a different performance, right? Bandwidth, delay, the jitter, and security requirements. Well, yes. As I said, your video traffic and your voice traffic, just those two have different requirements. Video comes in different forms. If you're doing a video-based conference with your team members, maybe that are home, maybe that are located in another state or another country, and you're video conferencing with them, that's important video. If you're watching a movie for the sake of watching a movie, that is not important video. If you have voice over IP and you're communicating with your business partners and your customers, and that voice communication that is important to your business, very critical. You're communicating with your peers inside your offices, very important. You are receiving or leaving voicemails, very important. So the requirements of video and voice and normal user traffic, very different. Okay? So network design models provide a way that you can integrate these different types of network traffic, the voice, the video, the normal management, network management traffic, from your mission critical traffic, routing traffic, all of that into a network that makes sense. As I said, you can't just throw network together. You may be able to put network together really fast in your house by plugging your machine to your switch to the router, and then that goes out to the internet. 3 devices or 2 devices where you have router, switch, and one, if you will, and you're just going out, and you have a wireless access point, and you can set things up in your home for the 4 or 5 people that live in your home very easily. As a matter of fact, today's wireless access points, if you went to go buy one, or if you have one, maybe you do, and you probably do, you're able to set that wireless access point up simply by plugging it in and turning it on, and many of them are pre-configured. You don't even have to do very much. But when you take that to the organization level, things change. Things change greatly. You cannot have a small 4-port switch for an organization. You're going to need a real switch, one that's stackable. You can have multiple switches, and you can have VLANs, and a lot more requirements from the perspective of the organization, and a lot more different kinds of traffic that is going to be taking place. In your home, you do have voice traffic, you do have video traffic, you do have normal user traffic, but at home, if things don't work, it's okay. Or if you have to restart something, it's okay. If you have to reset the router, although you don't have to do that as much anymore, it's okay. You cannot reset a router, reset a switch, reset your network in an organization during normal business hours just by the flip of a switch. You may be able to get away with doing that once, really, during normal business hours, and you better have a very good explanation for why you're doing that. Because you're disrupting the business, right? You're disrupting business during business hours. You can't just flip a switch. So you have to have things in place. You have to have your network structure in such a way that it is not only designed to meet the needs of the network bandwidth, the network expansion, the types of traffic that are going to be coming in, voice, video, mission critical traffic, routing traffic, network management traffic. But you're designing for expansion, you're designing the network in such a way that it will accommodate the different groups and types of people in an organization. And if the organization should grow in terms of people or devices, your network can handle the growth. So there is this hierarchical design model. Okay? Now, many network designers, including myself, use this model for many, many years. Now, this is an older model that really provides the idea of how a reliable network may be conceived, but it was a conceptual model. You essentially had in this model, this, let me make this a little bit bigger, okay? You essentially had your access. Okay? Now your access is where your switches were, and this is what these switches was what the PCs were connected to down here. And then you had your distribution. Okay, so you have your access, your distribution, right? And then you had your core. Okay? So the 3 pieces of the puzzle, if you will, in this hierarchical model: the access, where the endpoints were connected to, the distribution, where they were going to. Maybe these are different floors in a given office, and this is going out to the internet, maybe, or connecting to other buildings, whatever the case may be. So this is on individual floors, this is in between floors, and this is the building going out. As an example, core, distribution, and access, right? So Now, the same three-layer hierarchical model can be used in the WAN with central headquarters, division headquarters, and units. Okay? So if you think about this here, we have the access layer, as I said, which provides network access to work groups and stations and these laptops and desktops, if you will. You have the distribution layer, which provides connectivity based on policies. And then you have the core layer, which provides high-speed switch distribution between elements. Okay. Now, the early model, this model right here, the hierarchical model, was good, but it failed to address many things that we deal with today. For example, where does wireless fit into this picture? Somewhere in the access layer. Right? How about internet security? How is that taken care of? What about people that are dialing in? Have VPN access? There's not much dialing in going on, physical dialing in on the phone, but it can. But where does that go? Where does VPN fit into this picture? Okay. Where should a work group and enterprise services be located? Is it in the distribution? Is it in the access? In the core? Where is it? Okay. So for that, there came an enterprise composite model. It is significantly more complex, and the enterprise composite model wants to address the shortcomings of the hierarchical design model. Okay? And it's really going to expand this model so that it can address the issues right here, for example, the wireless issue, the internet access and security issue, the dial-up and VPN issue, things associated with workgroup and enterprise services. Where should that be located? You know what I mean by workgroup and enterprise services? Really, if you think about it, in this structure right here, right, do I place the individual departments at the access layer? The HR department, the sales department, the marketing department, the executive department, the support department. Where does that fit into this picture? Is these different access layers? And this model right here, this hierarchical model, doesn't really address a lot of those things. Where does wireless fit into this picture? Do I have wireless access points here at the access, or do I have it at distribution, or do I have it at the core? Do I have it in all three places? And where's internet here? Where is internet here? Is this the only place that has access to the internet going out? I don't know. Maybe. Can I place internet on individual floors? If I was to say that this right here is individual floors, this, and then this right here is between floors, and this is building-wide. Right? If I was to put that in that particular manner, I could say that in this particular instance, I would have myself a little bit of a design here, right? You think this would be perfect, but it's not. This case right here, this situation right here, does not address many of the issues. And by the way, I have designed many network interfaces using this particular hierarchical type model where I've got, a core at the building. I've got these distribution in between floors. And then I've got stuff on individual floors. So this right here, if I was to, this can be floor 4. This can be floor 3. This can be floor 2. And this can be floor 1, or first floor, as it's better known, right? And this over here can be the entire building, right? Maybe in the building basement or the building data center, right? Maybe that's the case right over here. So it's either the building basement or the building data center where this is located, and then you have different floors. And then on individual floors, these can be your departments. Yeah, I did this many, many times. Depending on what's going on, these departments can be the, if you will, the work groups, if you will. But they're really, in this particular situation, they're not really, there's really no security to speak of. There's no wireless to deal with. Where is internet in this particular situation? Is internet really going out from this place, right? Or do I have it on individual floors? Everything is going out this way. There's only one connection to the internet. And if these individual, what if this stuff falls apart? What if this falls apart? Does that mean that these local departments or these local work groups on floor 3, does that mean the whole floor gets dismantled? Have you seen that happen? I have. I've seen a floor or part of a floor go down. It's a bit of a headache if you really think about it.
Start with new learning now.